You're listening to the Uplevel Your Online Business Show, where wealth is empowering, purpose is crucial, and high vibes are non-negotiable. And now, here's your host, certified business coach and practical woo strategist, Sara J Loureiro.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Uplevel Your Online Business Show. Today, I have Lisa Simone Richards here. She is a PR and visibility strategist for online coaches who want to get seen everywhere. She's also from Toronto, which is where I'm from. And I'm just really excited to have this conversation. We've been talking a little bit back and forth right before I hit record, and we have some really great things coming for you. So welcome, Lisa.
I'm so excited to be a part of this conversation. And it's always so fun to realize that there's that not only a Canadian connection, but also that we're from the same neck of the woods. So even though you're in Nicaragua and I'm in Toronto, I love that we have that little bit of Toronto binding us together.
Yeah, perfect. Amazing. I love it. So tell us how you got started in PR and kind of just like having your own PR business.
Yeah, it's funny. When I think about like various phases of my life, I can see how I got in here. I remember this one distinct picture in my mom's baby album of me sitting in the snow, super Canadian. I was born in December, sitting in the snow in a jumpsuit, holding a phone in the snow. So like we knew Lisa was going to be a communicator. Fast forward to when I was maybe 11 or 12 years old, and I had a subscription to, I think it was Teen People magazine. And I remember seeing the letters to the editor section. I thought to myself, how cool is it that anyone can just write a letter, pop it in the mail, and then a few months later see it themselves in print. So I wrote a letter to the editor, and 3 months later, the magazine came home in the mail to me, and it had a turquoise background and Jonathan Taylor Thomas from Home Improvement on the cover in a red t-shirt, who was totes my crush, like Teen Beat, Tiger Beat posters of him everywhere. And I opened the magazine and I saw my name in print and I saw my letter to the editor. And that was the first time I got hooked. I thought it was so cool to see my name actually get published. Fast forward again a few years. Now I'm about 18 years old at my first year at Western University in London. And I was having lunch with a girl who was in fourth year, who's in the same sorority as me. And she was going to come back to Toronto and go to PR school. So she was telling me about PR school. And this is, again, 2002. Sex and the City was in its heyday. Samantha Jones made PR look so glamorous and glitzy, and the fashion and the parties and the exclusivity. And I was like, that sounds like fun. I think I'm going to go into PR. So all through university, I was volunteering with Students' Council, volunteer fashion shows with the sorority I was a part of in various PR and communications roles to get a feel for it. Ended up following that girl's footsteps and went to PR school as soon as I graduated. And then really long story short, after I graduated from school, I worked in fashion beauty for a little while, did the Devil Wears Prada thing, moved into an agency where I was working on huge names like Virgin, Staples, Crayola. And then I moved into a smaller fitness company where I was able to help them grow from 400,000 a year to 4 million a year. And it was so cool to see the impact that publicity and visibility had for that company. So really fast forward to about 2015, 2016. This is when I was really starting to see the rise of entrepreneurship. A lot of people were leaving their really safe 9-to-5 jobs where they were making healthy 5, 6, maybe even multiple 6-figure salaries. But what they were thirsty to do was take a chance on themselves, whether that was starting a Pilates studio, starting a coaching business, a practice of their own. They wanted to do something that was more than just sitting in a beige cubicle that paid the bills. So what I was seeing is the entrepreneurs would leave their jobs, start their own thing, but they didn't know how to get visibility for it. They couldn't go to a PR agency like the one that I used to work at because they would be told 100%, we'd love to have you on our roster alongside, Staples and Crayola. It's $10,000 a month on a 12-month retainer. Just sign here and we'll represent you. That wasn't really possible for them. So I started off having my own agency in 2015, just smaller 3-month retainers. And it was great. I was seeing people get coverage, but at the end of that, they didn't have the relationships. They couldn't keep it going. So what I've been doing since then, what I'm really passionate about is showing entrepreneurs, business owners, coaches, here's how you get your own visibility. Here's how you figure out the right places. Here's how you figure out who the people who hold the power to give you access. And here's how you make a really good ask of them, full of value, demonstrating why you should get access to this platform. And now what I love is after 6 months of working with me, my clients are booking themselves on television, bunch of podcasts. One of my clients last week that I spoke with booked the stage that was on her vision board. So it's so cool to be able to teach people a skill that they can lather, rinse, and repeat for the life cycle of their business.
Beautiful. I love it. And I have to say, we also went to the same university. How crazy is that?
Small world.
Right? I feel like I had to throw that in there. And I think that this is the funnest and coolest thing about online entrepreneurship is like all of the amazing people that you meet, and how many things that you crazily have in common, right?
Like imagine if we went into what classes we had and we could find out we probably knew the same people and sat in the same room at some point.
I know, right? So, okay, we talked a little bit about the difference between content and visibility, because this is such an important conversation. Because I know that for my community and so many of my clients, when they first start working with me, they're just like, okay, yeah, visibility. Okay, great. Yeah, I'm doing reels, right? And I think a lot of people have this conception that if you post to Facebook, if you post to Instagram, if you post to LinkedIn, that somehow magically the algorithms are going to work in your favor and you're going to get a whole bunch of people following your stuff. And I know, like, for me personally, I've been in business for so long. This couldn't be further from the truth, right? But what do you have to say about this as a visibility expert?
Yeah, there's a massive difference between visibility and content. So I'm really glad that we're starting off here. There's this theory and this belief, if you build it, they will come. I've heard a lot of people come to me and they say, Lisa, I want more visibility. I'm going to start a podcast. Lisa, I want more visibility. I'm going to start a YouTube channel. Or just like you were saying, Sarah, I want more visibility. I'm going to do reels. How are you going to get people to watch those reels? How are you going to find people to listen to that podcast? Where are these YouTube viewers coming from? Just because you're creating it doesn't mean people are consuming it. And maybe 5 years ago, we could use hashtag business coach on an Instagram post and get new followers, but the landscape has since changed. So here's a distinction that I like to make between content and visibility. Content is what you're creating on your own platforms, and it's what you're using to nurture your existing audience. So your existing email subscribers, your followers on Facebook, the members of your group and pages what did I say there? The people who are on your email list, the people who are following you on Instagram, and then the people who are a member of your Facebook page or group. That's how we say it there. When you're creating content on those platforms, that's for the people who already are in your ecosystem. What we need to keep in mind is we need to be growing constantly. If you look at your email list, has it grown in the last week? Has it shrunk, or is it the same? Do the same thing with your followers or your group members. Is that number growing? I think a lot of people are disappointed that they're putting so much time into creating content for the same people over and over and over again, and they're surprised that it's not turning into more sales. It's important for us to nurture our existing audiences, but we also have to focus on visibility. How are we reaching new leads every single week? How are we bringing them onto our platform? So once we get the visibility, then that nurture content that we're already doing is going to serve them. So we have to make sure we're, number one, nurturing our existing leads, but we cannot forget how important it is to make sure that every week, every day, we are bringing new leads into our world. Because when we're making offers in front of more people, then yes, we are going to see our sales grow. But if you're making an offer to the same 10 people every single month for a year and you're surprised your business isn't growing, it's because we're not reaching more people. So we got to have content, we got to have visibility.
Yes, I love it. I love how greatly you summarize that. And I've seen so many people do this as well. Be like, oh, I want more clients. I want more visibility. Cool. I'm going to go on TikTok. Or great. I'm just going to create more content on this other platform. And it ends up being so overwhelming for so many people.
And I think the hamster wheel that it creates is I'm creating all this content, I'm doing all this work, and I'm not getting the result, which then leads to frustration. This must not be working. And the thing that I want people to hear is, you're probably not doing it wrong. You've probably got a great offer. You probably are doing really good content. It's just not reaching enough people. So chances are it's actually not you. You just need more people to know about you to have the desired effect.
Beautiful. Yeah, exactly. I couldn't agree more, honestly. And when you work with your clients and just coaches in general, what would you say is your favorite way to help them to get more visible? So what do you feel like are things that in 2022 are just like, yes, this is the thing that you need to get on?
You know what? I wish I had a cookie cutter answer for that. I do have a platform that works the best for my clients and I, and I'm happy to share what that is. But it also comes down to who's the person that's in front of me. What are their goals for their business? So, when it comes to visibility, this is where our confidence and our imposter complex and am I good enough starts to come up as well. So for me personally, I'm an only child syndrome. Throw me on stage in front of 3,000 people and I will jump up and be like, hey, everybody, put your phones down. I'm here. Pay attention to me now. That's terrifying, probably for 90% of the population. So depending on the person who's in front of me is going to change the way that it makes sense for them to show up in their best way possible. Typically, I like to walk my clients through what I call the ladder of publicity. It can be different for everyone, but I find that this is a great way to get seen and build your confidence while you're at it, so you can continue to move up in the ways that you're being seen. Typically, people will start off with written content. And actually, before I even talk about this ladder of publicity and the 3 different ways of being seen, heard, and read about, what was the one thing I want to share? I hate when I lose something as I'm talking, but let's go through the ladder of publicity anyway. And probably as I'm talking about it, it's going to come back to me and I can drop it in and share. So when it comes to getting seen, this is the thing I was going to say. Here we go. I really encourage people to have what I call a healthy media mix. So what I mean by a healthy media mix is think about the way you like to consume content. It was really funny with my husband and I making dinner the other night. We make this one Thai red curry every few weeks. Because we're not doing it all the time, I don't remember the recipe. So I turn on YouTube and I will watch the video over and over again. He is like, Lisa, I'm really tired of listening to that lady speak. Can we just look up the blog? So people like to consume content different ways, and your client is exactly the same. Some people prefer to read content, some people prefer to listen to it, and others prefer to watch. So I very much recommend that you get seen in one of each of those 3 ways. So no matter how your ideal client likes to consume information, you're providing content in the way that they want it. Not only that, but when they Google search your name, you're now showing up on different platforms, so that builds your authority and your credibility as well. So now that I was able to remember the healthy media mix, let's take it back to that ladder of publicity and the 3 tiers of being seen. So at the very bottom, there is written content so that people can read about you. Maybe this means you're getting interviewed or writing articles for various websites, maybe guest blog posts, maybe in a magazine or a newspaper. Whatever it is, it's a way that people can read your content. This is a great way to get started, because especially if you haven't put yourself out there before and you're not really sure about it and you want to build your confidence, this is where your inner perfectionist gets to win. You can write that article, or you can answer those interview questions. You can put them away for 24 hours and revisit and edit them. You can ask somebody else what they think of it. And then once you're satisfied, you can hit send. So that's the beginning. And that's when I let the perfectionist come out and play and have a little bit of a win. A really good way to get started with this, if you're trying to think, okay, Lisa, I'm into it. I'd like to contribute content, but I have no idea where to write an article for. Simply start off by going onto Google, type in Write for Us, WRITE for us, and whatever your industry is. Write for us money, write for us relationships, write for us divorce, write for us nutrition. No matter what industry you're in, when you type those phrases in, you're going to get some sites that are looking for people who have the kind of who want the kind of expertise that you have to create content. May not be the biggest, sexiest websites in the world, but it's a great place to get started. So we start off with written content, then let's move on to audio content. This is where you're being heard. Maybe you're being interviewed on a podcast like this one. Maybe you're co-hosting or moderating a room on Clubhouse. If you have a bricks and mortar business, maybe you're being interviewed on a local radio station. But this is where you're practicing your messaging. You're having a conversation, typically with one other person. I know all y'all have done that before successfully. So it's a great way to start practicing your messaging, building your confidence, talking about what you do, and really getting clear on how you're presenting yourself as a solution for your ideal clients. Now that we've had some written content and you can look your name up and see yourself published, maybe you've shared it on Facebook and your friends are like, oh my God, that's so cool. You wrote an article. Now that you've been on an interview and you've, talked it out and you've been featured and you're seeing the IG story for the podcast go live, my hope is as you're moving through these steps, you're standing a little bit taller, feeling a little more confident, a little prouder, and you're ready to keep climbing. So then we get to that third step, which is visual. How can people see you? And this can come in a bunch of different ways. It's so funny to think 20 years ago when I started off in publicity, it was all about television, magazines, radio, the really traditional platforms. Now it's evolved. In addition to visual media being, live stages and conferences, it could be television, but that's also doing an Instagram live on somebody else's account. It's going live in somebody else's Facebook group where you get exposed to new people. Maybe it's doing a guest training in somebody else's mastermind group, or you're presenting on a summit or a conference, whether that's live or virtual. Whatever it is, it's a different way that people can now see you. They can get a sense of your personality, your energy, the way that you interact. Because people hire coaches, not necessarily the tactics. They want to get to know your energy. So this is a way that now that you've practiced your messaging, you've built up your confidence, now you can confidently put yourself out there to be seen. And it's a great way to build connection and attract the right people to you. So again, with that ladder of publicity, we've got the 3 levels, starting off with written content, moving up to audio content, and then moving up to visual content. And of course, you can play with those in any way that makes sense for you. But I find, especially when you're getting started and you want to build that confidence, it's a really good way to be able to move up step by step.
Yeah, beautiful. I love it. I love it. And I also just kind of want to add in here that even for myself, doing interviews and collaborations with other people has probably been, I mean, I do a lot of different lead generation strategies in my business. I've tried and tested a whole bunch of them. They all work really, really well. I mean, Facebook ads work really well. DM strategies work really well. But there's literally nothing like collaborations and getting in front of someone else's audience that is in kind, right? That has like a very similar audience to what you have. And I found that that's been the biggest driver in terms of like lower cost, right? For me, because all of these other things that you do, like Facebook ads and things like that are generally pretty expensive, right? Lowest cost. And also it's not that you have like a ton of people coming in. So I think that's also a mindset reset. It's not like you're going to get on someone's podcast and all of a sudden tomorrow you're going to have 500 new followers. You might have like 2 or 3 people who are coming from that podcast, but those 2 or 3 people are already so sold on you because of that likability that you already have from that other person that they've already spent years, months consuming content from.
So I love that you're sharing that. And I want to expand upon it and highlight some of the things that you said. So number one, you had asked me a little bit earlier, what's the marketing strategy that's working? I was like, I don't want to have a cookie cutter answer. And I walked through all of them. The one that is working the best for my clients and I, hands down, is absolutely podcast guesting. And it comes down to that relationship build. So number one, I reached out to you from cold. I asked if I could come on the show, and it wasn't, hey, can I come in and talk all about myself and promote myself? It was, hey, how can I share some value with your audience? And that's really what my project is this year. So I'm going to do my best to kind of walk through some math, and hopefully we don't get lost along the way, because y'all know I'm a publicist. I'm not a math person. So knowing that podcasts are the primary strategy for both my clients and I, my goal is to book 10 podcasts every single month. So over the course of 12 months, that would be 120 shows this year. Now, beyond getting on 120 shows, beyond getting access to the listeners of 120 shows, it's developing relationships with 120 people. I know that not 120 are all going to be my best friends, but I even look at some of the relationships that I've created in the past. Let's look at this one specific one. Last year, I pitched Abby Herman from the Content Experiment to be on her podcast. She said yes, and that was awesome. But what's awesome that's evolved from that a year later is when I was working on an event about leaders and marketing, I was like, hey, who'd be a great guest for this? Abby. So Abby came onto it. She had a great experience there. Then this year she reached out to me and she was like, hey, I think we could collaborate on some stuff. We have similar audiences. So now we're working on a joint venture webinar for April. I had another person who I had reached out to, Kathleen Legris, years ago, who I didn't know. Asked her if I could do a guest blog post from her, and I got a yes. Wrote a guest blog post, said that I was on her podcast 2 or 3 times, gone live in her Facebook group at least twice. So how cool is it that one starting point created so many opportunities further down the line? So I think if someone's not taking advantage of the strategy, it's a huge, not only money on the table, but so imagine if these 120 people became your referrers, your affiliates, your joint ventures. Like, it's just so powerful to go into that with a mindset of how can I deliver value and who do I get the opportunity to meet doing this?
Yeah. And community over competition, right? Because
100%.
You could have someone who's so in love with the way that you work, and they could be on someone else's email list, and they've never purchased from that other person because something just didn't click. But then the minute that they see Lisa, they're like, okay, this is the person that I need. And I find that happens time and time again. And I think it's such an incredible thing where it's also not quantifiable. So it's not the same quantifiable thing as I'm going to put this much money into my Facebook ads and I'm going to get this type of cost per lead, or I'm going to send, like this many DMs to these specific people. But it's a lot more enriching. It's like you said, you create friendships and you create referral networks for such a long time.
And I love that you said community over competition. I often say collaboration over competition. So we're riding the exact same wavelength here. And another, I'm all about the stories. Another thing that was really cool in 2017, I met a woman named Christina Nicholson. She's also a publicist. She has a podcast called Media Maven and More. We met in an online course about building your first online course. So that was back in 2017. We do the exact same thing, to be clear. I've been on her podcast multiple times. I haven't launched my own yet, which is why she hasn't been on mine, because it hasn't been created. But when she has a launch coming up, I absolutely mail for her. I have her come live in my group. And what's really fun is we'll promote for each other. I've coached in her company before. And we were talking about my wedding 6 months ago earlier at the top before we hit record. She came from Florida to Toronto for my wedding. Someone who does the exact same thing as me online. Like, we're totes BFF. We have accountability calls every Friday morning. So it's so powerful when other people can recognize, hey, just because you do the same thing as me doesn't mean that you're a threat. Like, I'm all like, I love nice stuff and fancy meals, and Christina just wants pizza and fries all the time. Like, someone's going to connect more with me than they might with her, and someone's going to connect more with her than they might with me. And that's okay, because the person's being served by the person who caters best to them.
Yeah. And another thing that I wanted to say here, I was thinking about it and then I forgot about it as I was talking, but it came back again, is I was always under this impression of, I can't contact people who are kind of quote unquote higher up than me, because when I was first starting out, I feel like a lot of people probably think this way too, right? It's the whole like, well, that person's never going to say yes to me. And you literally you have no idea who's going to say yes to you. And sometimes you're so surprised, and it's such a great connection. Like, I've had interviews and I've done visibility with other people where I didn't even know their level of PR. And I approached them and they're just like, oh my goodness, I really like your vibe. We got on an interview. They really, really enjoyed talking to me. And then all of a sudden they're a referral partner and they just have this like massive business as well. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that in terms of that fear of, like really just putting yourself out there? Mm-hmm.
Let's start by being super vulnerable and opening the doors to Lisa's life and Lisa's business. So I said earlier, my goal is to book 10 plus podcasts every single month. Do you think I only send 10 podcast pitches a month? No, your girl sends 10 podcast pitches every single week. And then the next week, she follows up with the previous 10. So I'm sending out at least 40 podcast pitches every single month. Very specifically, to give you my numbers, in January, I reached out to 50 different podcasts. I have an assistant. She helps me find the shows. It actually really doesn't take me more than 30 minutes a week to qualify where the right fit for me could be. So I sent 50 pitches in January and I got 12 yeses. So that means I got 38 no's. And I'm not sitting losing sleep over the 38 people who said no thank you, who hit delete and never even responded. I got 12 people who said yes. And let's say from these 12 podcasts, I were to only, quote unquote, generate 10 leads per podcast. That's 120 new people who came into my world in the month of January. And we were talking about doing Facebook ads earlier. Like, never mind the cost of ads, the cost for an agency. My cost per lead is $6. So to bring in 120 leads that didn't cost me anything, that would have otherwise cost me $710 or something. I suck at math, but whatever it was, it's not free. So multiply that by, 12 months over the course of a year. It totally makes sense to like focus on such a precise strategy.
Right. And let's not forget too, what we were talking about. When someone comes to you through someone else that they already know, like, and trust, it just increases that know, like, trust with you as well. And I think that was, I've been doing this for so long. And so that's why even when you outreach to me, it was really interesting. And I think this is just helpful for everyone, but let me know if it's not, because I feel like I'm rambling. But I reject a whole bunch of people who want to come on my podcast too. I read their updates, I read what they're about, and then I get a feel and I'm just like, am I genuinely interested in bringing this person on? Yes or no? I'm not genuinely interested in bringing someone on and I bring them on anyways, I don't like the conversation because it's not benefiting my audience, right? And it just kind of comes to show it has nothing to do with that person. It's just, who is the best person that I can invite on as well? And so we're all just kind of here online doing all of this outreach and, like, no harm done, right?
And isn't it that interesting and powerful that you can just catch a vibe? because I have an assistant who does the research and she brings some shows to me and I vet all of them. I look at, like, pay attention to all of them. I do all of the outreach. It's not someone doing it for me. Someone does my research. And I can look at even just like the thumbnail of someone's podcast or just a few titles of their episodes. And I'm like, it just doesn't feel right. I don't have a rational reason as to why it's not the right one, but I'm not going to reach out to this because it just doesn't feel right. And we can just have that vibe that aligns for us.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's so beautiful. And one of the reasons why I want to talk about this stuff is because I know so many of the people who are in my community are probably listening to this and are probably just like, okay, yeah, I really like this idea. But then the fear of rejection is just so deep for so many people that it really stops them. Do you want to talk about it all? Because visibility is all about rejection, really, right?
Yeah, and I'm really glad you're highlighting this because I did a live on this a few weeks ago, and I think I really get to dive into this a little bit more, the fear of rejection, the fear of being seen. But I had 5 questions that I typically ask myself. I don't have them in front of me right now, so I'm really going to do my best to remember them. But when that fear comes up for me, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Byron Katie and the work, those 4 questions that you ask yourself over and over again. Anyone here is welcome to give that a Google. But, if I'm afraid of putting myself, if I'm afraid of putting myself out there or putting an ask out there, I'll really go into what's the fear coming up for me? Like, what happened to little 6-year-old Lisa that's reliving right now? And also, what's the worst thing that's going to happen if I get a no? So let's say I reach out and pitch Amy Porterfield, Online Marketing Made Easy, one of the biggest online marketing podcasts. And I get a, hey, no, we're not accepting people, or a, sorry, you're not the right fit. What happens to me? Really, really, what happens to me? My ego is bruised for a few seconds. I'm not any worse off than I was before. She's not going to put me on blast and be like, I can't believe this person pitched my show. What's going to happen? It's just no. Like, what's the worst that can happen? Then let's flip that over. What's the best that could happen? What if Amy Porterfield said yes to me? Like, literally, chances are she wouldn't. But what if she did? Let's just play with it. I get access to so many people. I could have such a cool conversation. I could develop a really powerful relationship. The way that other people perceive me would absolutely shift. Am I willing to risk not letting my feelings get hurt over the potential of what's possible if I got a yes? And I really have to sit down and weigh that out. Like, would I rather be safe? And you know what? I'm not going to say there aren't some instances in life where I've decided I think I'm going to stay safe. Not saying that was the right move to make, but I'm not saying I'm above it. But when I sit down and I really evaluate what's it cost and what is the price that I'm willing to pay to get the result that I want on the other end, it'll help move me into the yes of doing it. And something else that I encourage my clients to do is create a not so humble brag sheet. So again, it's a not so humble brag sheet. And I want you to list out how many years have you spent investing in your craft, learning about your craft. We talked back to Western when we went to school there. I'm 38 now. So that was 20 years ago when I was 18. That 4 years I spent there absolutely counted. The money I spent on tuition counted. All the volunteer work I've done, the college, the conferences, like literally add up your time and money invested. And that in itself is going to help you realize, whoa, I really do have something of value to contribute. Lean into what are the results I've created for myself? What are the results I've created for my client? When that imposter complex comes up, you know what? Here's a place where I can be vulnerable and real. We were doing a little bit of math just now. If I get, 10 podcasts a month and 10 leads on it, I'm not a math person. God, put me in front of your taxes and you're going to jail with the IRS. But when you ask me to talk about something I know about, I can talk about it. So I want you to remember, whoever's listening to this, you're doing something because you're good at it. You're probably not a publicist trying to become an accountant, in my case. You're doing something that you're skilled at. So lean into that confidence that you wouldn't be trying to build a business around something that you weren't qualified to be an authority on. So trust yourself and your expertise in the fact that you're doing this. And even think about, could my neighbor do all the stuff that I do? Even if you don't know your neighbor, I do know my neighbor, but they probably don't have the exact skill set and they would benefit from it. So don't take your work for granted and know that all of the time, the money, the resources, the energy you've invested in perfecting your craft deserve to get out there.
I think that's so beautiful. I love it. And we all have such a unique value, such a unique skill set. So let's not forget that as we go out there. And, failure is just a redirection, right? Like rejection is redirection. It's just a part of data and a part of the process. And the more that everyone can see that, especially when it comes to visibility, it just makes life so much easier. It's like, oh yeah, it's normal. Yeah, it's normal to get rejected 38 times.
38 times in a month.
Yeah. 38 rejections to get 12 yeses, because those 12 yeses are worth the 38 rejections.
And, even if I can lean into that a little bit more, just with the concept of failing, I don't remember the name of the book, but I think around 2019, someone came up with a book called Failing Forward, and they were just on a mission to do new things and fail. And a business coach that I was working with took that to heart. And she's like, okay, I'm on a mission. 2019, my goal is to fail 19 times. I'm going to double my company. I'm going to start this new division. I'm going to hire this team. And guess what? She did fail a lot of times. And she also grew from 7 figures to 8 figures along the way. So, I'm willing to risk a little failure and rejection to hit some huge numbers and to open up my potential and see what's possible for me. So, yeah, what's on the line if you don't risk failing forward and just use everything as a lesson? It's not, it's just feedback. It's not saying, hey, you're a bad person. Hey, you suck. It's just this process, this approach, this tactic didn't work. How can you shift next time? It's not personal. Once we make it not personal and it's just feedback and data, then a lot more opens up to us.
Oh, I love it. I say that all the time. What I usually say is like, let's take the emotion out of it, because when we can take the emotion out of it and just be like, okay, this is my brand. It's not me as a human. It's not my inner child, right? Like, this is my brand that someone is rejecting. It's not me. They're not telling me that I'm a terrible person or whatever it is that we're trying to make believe in our brain. So I love it. I think that this is a great way to kind of just like culminate the episode as well. I feel like I could talk to you forever, but let's just end it off here. I feel like you gave everyone amazing gems. Like I could literally be like, hey, if you want to learn about visibility, listen to my podcast episode with Lisa, because that's how informative it was. So thank you. Where can we find you online? What do you have going on?
One of the things I like to support people with is, we talked about you can be on written media, you can be on audio media, you can be on visual media. We talked about podcasts, guest blog posting, lives in other people's groups. We probably went through 15 different ways to get visible. And I don't want people walking out of here feeling overwhelmed, like, okay, cool, I'm sold on the idea of getting on other people's platforms, but I don't even know where to begin. So I would love to be able to support you with that. I have a quiz called How Should I Get Visibility as an Online Coach? It's a long name, but it puts a context in there. How should I get visibility as an online coach? So this is a quiz where I'm going to, number one, find out a little bit about your personality. Do you have only child syndrome like me? And you'd go on stage and be like, yes, everyone, pay attention to me now. Or would that freak you right out and you would rather be, hiding behind a keyboard, letting the perfectionist win for the first few times? So I figured out what your personality is. I also asked some questions to figure out what are your business goals. Are your objectives right now to get in front of new people who have the potential to hire you? Are you going into a launch and you need buzz? Or are you in a stage where you really want to build thought leadership, authority, and credibility? That's going to impact what makes sense for you as well. So when you take that, how should I get visibility as an online coach quiz? I'm going to give you 1 of 5 answers that says, based on your personality, based on your business goals, this is what's going to make sense for you. And I'll also send you a training video so that you can get started. So if you would like to take that quiz, it's available for free at www.lisasimonerichards.com/quiz. Again, it's lisasimonerichards.com/quiz. And I will share with you one way that you can get visibility and send you a training video on how to get started.
Beautiful. All right. Awesome. I'm really excited about that. Thank you so much for being here, Lisa.
This has been a really fun conversation. Just like you, I could keep going all day. So thank you again. I'm glad that we had the vibe and it kicked off. And it's been a pleasure to chat with you.
Thanks for listening to the Uplevel Your Online Business Show. If you enjoy our show and would like the show notes and free goodies about how to grow your online coaching business, head over to sarajloureiro.com for more information. We hope you'll tune in next time.